Evening, everybody. I'd like to call to order this meeting of Susquehanna Township Board of Commissioners. I would note that all commissioners are present, with the exception of Ward 3 Commissioner Mona Johnson, who is excused. I would note that the board did meet in executive session to discuss matters involving personnel and real estate. We'll have a Pledge of Allegiance followed by a moment of silence. The pledge will be led tonight by Commissioner Rothrock.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everybody. Light crowd tonight. Light agenda. We'll get out of here in 10 minutes, right? Okay. All right. First up, petitions, complaints, and suggestions from citizens. Do we have anybody who would care to address the board? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to approval of the minutes from our September 14th regular meeting. So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And our September 28th workshop meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Reports committees. Buildings and Grounds, Commissioner Rothrock.
I have no report, although I'm wondering about the status of the contract to move the compressor to the roof and fix the
Travis, or Nate, I don't know. I know Travis was interacting with the contractor on that issue. Has he gotten back to you in terms of scheduling date?
Last thing I got is last thing I sent you.
Okay. So we had followed up with the contractor to determine his schedule as it relates to the repair and the HVAC relocation, if you will. And he had indicated that he was going to be in touch for scheduling, but we have not heard back at this point.
Okay.
So we'll have to follow up again.
All right, thank you. That's all I had on that.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner. Budget and Finance, Commissioner Sanderson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Very briefly, had a very thorough and vigorous debate. Nothing new has come up in the budget. We are making preparations to have a regular budget presentation for the schedule as we've come to know it. Presentation in November, adoption in December. 75–80% of the budget every year is fixed because of known costs, and we expect no unanticipated, the unknowns, expectations of costs. So I think what we're looking for is a very small incremental cost increase to the budget, which is not going to necessitate an increase of revenue in any formal way, and it'll be a normal budget as we've always come to expect. Of course, in the normal process, if you have any questions about any of the line items at all, township staff is more than able to answer those questions. Of course, please ask me as well. But I think this looks as though it's an uneventful budget, and we'll be prepared to discuss it more when it's presented.
So we're looking at presenting the budget, I believe, on November 9.
First meeting of the month, yes.
That is
Okay.
correct.
And do we advertise or do we have a hearing at that meeting, or is it the adoption meeting?
No, that's the hearing. Then we have to advertise. And then after 30 days, formal adoption can proceed.
Okay, so the hearing's on the night?
It's not necessarily a hearing. It's an authorization to advertise a proposed budget for,
Right.
for
Available for public
2018.
comment.
So it'll be open for
Yeah.
public inspection at
Yeah.
that point. Yep.
Mr. President, question. Are there plans yet to do a budget workshop as we've done in past years? I believe we did one last year. During the workshop meeting, we went over the budget for the...
We certainly could do that again. I have no objection to it. I would expect that would be a meeting to ask very good questions about refining various line items. In fact, our first budget, it's a very good point, Commissioner, our very first budget meeting this year was about a month later than we normally would have it because of we're getting a stronger grasp on the line items themselves. So I think that would be a wise suggestion. That's a very good point. I agree with that.
So if you like, I can follow up with an email and look at some potential dates to have perhaps a budget workshop meeting for the Board of Commissioners.
Perhaps the second meeting of the month.
We could do that. I think there was some discussion about conflict that would occur on the 26th. Is that correct?
Yes, that's the township's trick or treat night.
So if we did it on the Wednesday instead, that's already advertised, the Wednesday meeting.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm just so you know, I'm not going to be able to make it on the 25th. That's not suggesting that you can't meet, and that's not suggesting that somebody from a staff perspective can't be present on the 25th.
I don't know if we have any other major topics for the agenda for the second meeting of the month. That would be just the one topic. I think we could discuss. It would not have to be a very long meeting. In fact, if we had the materials presented to us in advance.
Yeah, and we could absolutely provide copies of the budget and then provide context through conversation at that session.
Jill, would you be available?
Yes.
Would that be
So-
acceptable?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and we're talking about the 26th?
Well, I think you were talking about the
25th.
25th.
Yeah, the Wednesday before.
And for those of you who may recall, we did have the Citizens Budget Committee, but when we went to the workshop meeting, discussing the budget at a workshop meeting, the theory was that then all the commissioners and any public could participate as well.
Sure.
All right, so we're looking at 7, or do you want to stick with the workshop timing?
Well, Johnny, do you, and I'm sorry, do you know what that second meeting of the month is typically at? 7:30, I think
Yeah.
it is. So, again, there's
I think
nothing
you're
to
right.
say that you can't, I think the commissioner was making a point that you have a standing meeting that's advertised for the fourth Wednesday of the month. It's at 7:30. But again, if the board wants to change that time, there's nothing that would prevent you from advertising a special meeting and having a separate meeting at, whether it be 6:30 or whatever you choose.
7:30.
Have it at 6. Could we have it at 6? Is that too soon?
It's even better.
Even better.
That's fine with me.
Okay. 6 p.m. on the 25th.
Okay, do the advertisement?
Yeah, we'll take care of the advertisement. Yep.
Do we need a motion?
Wouldn't hurt.
Yeah,
To advertise.
I move to have the second meeting of the month on October 25th at 6 p.m.
Second?
Moved and second. Any comment?
Second meeting of the month will focus on the refinement of the budget to allow for public comment and extensive discussion therewith.
Very good. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Anything else?
That's all. Thank you. We will have a second pension meeting of the year this October, which is standard timing. We don't have any materials to share, but after that meeting, we'll have more information about normal pension information. That's it.
Yeah, we'll also make sure to scan the material and make sure that all commissioners get copies of the distributed material. Again, both Conrad Siegel actuaries will provide some actuarial probably discussion, and then it'll primarily focus, I would imagine, on the investment performance, which is a separate arm of Conrad Siegel.
Yes.
Is that the fourth Wednesday at noon?
That is correct. So it's October the 25th
Same day. Oh.
at noon. Yep.
Marathon.
All right, Public Works, Commissioner Napper.
Yes, sir. The Public Works report for September. Mr. President and Commissioners, as you know, the Public Works Highway Department is transitioning from a routine preventive maintenance division into a developing construction resource facility. The purpose of this transformation is to save the township unnecessary project outsourcing costs and to better utilize the highway personnel within their most efficient parameters. In addition to the routine monthly maintenance of sign installation, traffic control, device construction, and grass mowing, the department resurfaced the 3800 block of Wood Alley, which is located in Ward 6, due to several potholes and residential complaints. The team also rebuilt storm inlets in the intersection of Brookfield Road and Cloverfield Road in Ward 6, as well in Ward 9 at 100 Wood Creek Court. The Public Works Department removed down trees, debris, and ways, disposed of wildlife remains, and routine swept each township street monthly. Public Works also repaired and tar sealed various roadways throughout the township. Future projects for October, they're scheduling the street sweeping, which will end October 20th, and our leaf collection campaign begins on the 23rd. Please check the township website for more information and the newsletter as well. However, we may begin a random collection of leaf prior depending on the need for various wards. Finally, Mr. President, the Public Works Department is creating a structure that is designed to promote excellence and quality workmanship. Our goal is to show a commitment to serve every community within Susquehanna Township fairly while developing a lean, efficient, highly trained, cohesive operation. This ends my report, Mr. President.
I like that.
Very well. Very well.
That's our new Public Works. Huh? Thank you, sir. Would you like to elaborate on anything, sir?
No, sir, I think you handled it.
Thank you. All right.
Health and Sanitation, Commissioner Barczak.
Thank you, Mr. President. The next yard waste pickup by Penn Waste will be conducted on Saturday, October 21st. And that concludes my report.
All right, thank you. Administration Personnel, Commissioner Knapper.
No report, sir.
Thank you. Police, Commissioner Engel.
No report.
Thank you. Fire and EMS, Commissioner Fleming.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to provide an update. Year to date, the volunteer fire companies have responded to the following calls. The following number of calls. Edgemont Fire Company, 205. Progress Fire Company, 601. Rescue Fire Company, 525. All three companies and the fire chief are conducting public fire safety education events throughout October for Fire Prevention Month. I would remind residents to change the batteries in your smoke detectors on the morning of Sunday, November 5th, when we turn the clocks back. That's always a good reminder every 6 months to do so. Anyone in need of a smoke detector can contact Fire Marshal George Drees at 717-909-9282. And that concludes my report.
That's a cell phone, right?
That's the office line, but I'm sure he's available. Oh, 9255. Oh, did I read it incorrectly off the? Oh, I sure did. Sorry, 9255. My apologies.
Repeat the whole number for our televised
717
wrongs.
909 9255. It might be time for me to get readers, guys. This is not good. I just had an existential crisis on camera. This is tough stuff.
You okay?
And no shortage of friends to offer them to
The
me.
first number was right, Justin. Yeah.
So thank you. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Join the club.
Recreation, Commissioner Barczak.
No report, thank you.
All right, thank you. Planning and Zoning, Commissioner Rothrock.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. There was a meeting of the Planning Committee on September 25th. Commissioner Barczak and I were both present. There were three major topics they talked about. One was a proposed text amendment from Triple Crown Corporation. They're proposing to convert an office building to residential use at 2605 Continental Drive. The issue was the number of units in the building. It's in a BOR zone, which on the 12 units per acre basis would allow 68 units. They're proposing 50 units, 10 two-bedroom and 41 bedroom. We currently have a multifamily zoning limit of 18 units per building, which is creating a problem for them. They have this huge building. There is an exception in that zoning limit for elderly housing, which raises it to 54 units per building. What they were proposing was to change language in the zoning code to eliminate the 18-unit limit and allow lot size to limit the number of units. For instance, the 12 per acre in the BOR zone. One thing about that proposal is that it would affect all areas of the township. It would be a township-wide zoning change. There was no action taken as the chairman asked for more specific language from them as to, after our discussion, it kind of changed a little bit as to what they were looking for. And that was received here just this week, and it's going to be a topic of discussion at our next planning committee meeting. One of the things that we discussed, though, as another way to look at this would be a special exception amendment for rehabs that would just apply to rehab situations or just apply to this particular project. Personally, I'm a little leery of making a township-wide change from 18 units to 54 units because it would also involve new construction. So my personal feeling is that we probably need to look more towards something more specific to this project and maybe do a few of these conversions to figure out what bugs are there before we make a zoning change township-wide. But that's my personal opinion, and I'll express that at our planning meeting, and I'm sure they'll have a recommendation for you.
So more for adaptive reuse as opposed to a new build.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Mr. President, just as an aside, that's one of the most thoughtful commentaries I think I've heard regarding planning and zoning, like, ever.
Oh.
He's not done, so.
Yeah.
I got started.
So, no, in all seriousness, I didn't want to end your report. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, for context, usually we're thinking about doing things at the same time that we're thinking about them. So, but now you're thinking about it to think about it. This is great. Thank you.
The second item that was discussed was a medical marijuana ordinance, which was based on a model ordinance, but I'm not sure, Dave, where did that model ordinance come from? I didn't write that.
Tri-County Planning Commission.
Tri-County Planning Commission.
Tri-County Planning
Yep.
Commission. And the concept behind this, I think, is we know this is coming, so we want to have some ordinances in place so that when someone approaches us, possibly with, a growing facility or whatever, we'll have some parameters as how that should be done. The key features of the ordinance are that there's 4 components to this medical marijuana thing. You have research centers, you have growers, processors, you have transport vehicles, and then you have dispensaries. And the ordinance says that all of these components, except for the dispensary, have to be in an industrial zone and have to be secure, and it goes into a lot of detail about the security. Dispensaries can be in a commercial zone. Growing can only be done indoors at secure facilities, and dispensaries have to be separate from the growing facility. Those are some of the key components. They did approve sending this to the board for approval, but it first has to go to the county. Am I
It
right?
has to go to the County Planning Commission, and they have 30 days to respond with their recommendation.
So that's,
It'll be, as the board's aware, before you can act on it, you'll have to have a hearing, so the hearing would be scheduled for your next meeting, your November meeting.
okay. And then there was an overview of the Greenbelt project that's going from, on Front Street from Lingostown Road up to Fort Hunter. They said the construction was going to be occurring somewhere around May to November 2019, and the cost was $3.9 million. And I don't remember anybody telling me who was going to pay that $3.9 million. Do we know that?
State money,
It's a PennDOT project,
Okay.
I believe.
Okay.
not us.
Okay. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. That was very well done. Standing O.
Would the board authorize us to advertise the intent to adopt that medical marijuana zoning change, and also to advertise for a hearing before your November meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Having it moved and seconded, do we anticipate the letter back from Tri-County?
Yes. It has been submitted to them. The 30 days will run. It'll be back to us before our November meeting. And also, we're getting the Dauphin County Planning Commission recommendation on our ordinance based on their draft ordinance. So they're kind of familiar with it.
Okay. All right.
We've already received the letter and they're fine with it. So
Oh,
there's
did
no
you?
comment on it.
Okay. Very good. So it's moved and seconded to advertise the hearing. What time did you say? 7 o'clock? Okay. And the date is November 9.
November the 9th, that is
Okay.
correct.
That's the motion, and it's been seconded. Any other comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Commissioner. Bids and agreements. Number one is a finishing touch cleaning service agreement. It's in your packets. Does anybody wish to enunciate or move?
I move to adopt it.
Okay. It's been moved.
I second.
It's moved and seconded. Any comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. This is an HRG matter, Paxton Church Road, Rose Hill Road, on-lot disposal system inspections agreement.
Yeah, again, I can provide a little bit more context, and then Bob, you can also jump in as well. Again, as I had communicated, the Township's Act 537 plan, which was approved by Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection, requires an annual inspection of the on-lot systems in the Paxton Church Rose Hill Road study area, which was identified in the plan. A report of the findings is then generated and sent to the department to meet the condition of approval. Again, this is something that's happening on an annual basis. So this is a scope that HRG has undertaken on our behalf prior for purposes of meeting the condition of the Act 537 planning approval. The total estimated cost of the work is $8,600. And again, the scope of work is consistent with the scopes that the board had authorized in prior years.
There are approximately 45 properties involved that need to be inspected on an annual basis as part of the condition of our Act 537 plan, as Manager Kratzer indicated.
Move to adopt the agreement.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next is the first of two concerning Susquehanna Township's disposal of woody waste and related materials, converting it to mulch. The first is an agreement between Susquehanna Township and Dig My Earth. Does anybody have, we did a site visit this week to have a look at the facility, which is up behind Fort Hunter. They take trees, limbs, woody materials from residents. And then they convert it into mulch and other materials that are used to have a greener environment. Some of the materials also used for erosion control, which is a new market I think that's opening up. So, in my view, it's proved to be a win-win scenario because we get our materials taken care of, and the materials is turned into marketable material. But the main thing is to get rid of it, and we have to have a place to dispose of the stuff. So anyway, I don't know if anybody wants to make a motion on this before discussing it, but we certainly can discuss it afterwards.
I'll move to adopt the agreement. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any comment?
Just to reiterate what you just said, the site visit was great. The facility has come a long way in the last, 8-10 months. It's very easily accessible, and those that haven't gone there before because feeling that it's not accessible, that's not the case any longer, so it's a great idea, and I think it's a win for the township.
Okay.
Mr. President, if I may, I'd just like to mention, more for constituents than anything, per the contract, they do not accept grass clippings, and I know there's been some questions about that recently from residents, because prior to the new ownership, there wasn't always consistency with that. So just so residents are aware, they cannot accept grass clippings.
Good point. Thank you.
On the plus side, Mr. President, we were informed that township residents could pick up about a yard of mulch free of charge. It's worth
Yeah,
knowing.
it's
People
great.
may be interested.
Great win-win. And we'll publish this in our next newsletter.
Yep.
Okay, any other comment? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. The next one is an agreement between Susquehanna Township and James Hufford. It kind of corresponds and it does dovetail with this. And Mr. Kratzer, if you want to kind of tee it up for us.
Sure, I'd be happy to. Again, the agreement that you had previously taken action on really relates to the the operations and the staffing of the site. This second agreement relates to access to the site, as Mr. Hufford is the landowner for the site. So, again, the terms coincide. They match. The provisions are generally consistent between the two agreements because they will function for all intents and purposes as a single agreement, but there's a couple entities involved in the transaction.
Well put. Is there a motion on the agreement?
So move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any comment or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, action on ordinances, resolutions, subdivisions and such. Ordinance 17-16. This is an ordinance, proposed ordinance prohibiting parking on the west side of 6th Street North from Hurlock Street, a distance of 131 feet and 9 inches.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And ordinance 1717, prohibiting parking on the west side of Elmwood Drive from Oakwood Lane to Thea Drive.
Move to adopt.
Moved and seconded. Any comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Unfinished business. Is there any?
Nothing beyond the report, Mr. President.
Okay. Manager traffic studies?
No report. Nope.
Okay. Mr. Foreman, do you have anything tonight?
Since I already obtained your authorization for the public hearing and notice of intent for next meeting, I have nothing more.
Okay, thank you. School Board, Commissioner Fleming.
Yes, Mr. President. I will note the presence of School Board President John Dietrich, and I'm just going to say a brief word and then allow him to make any update that he has. I just wanted to share quickly, during a recent school board meeting, School District Business Manager Oz Anderson presented the school district's preliminary budget. And I'm going to just repeat a couple of comments that I made that evening, commending Mr. Anderson, Superintendent Willis, and the school board for crafting a preliminary budget while we're still waiting for the state budget for this fiscal year. It's an incredibly difficult task. And unfortunately, these long overdue budgets are becoming habitual. And I hope that for the sake of school districts and many other entities across the Commonwealth, that Governor Wolf and legislative leaders can agree quickly on a resolution to the state budget and get the needed Commonwealth funds out there for, for the citizens of Pennsylvania. So, Mr. Dietrich, do you have anything?
May I come up and speak?
Absolutely.
So you can hear me better, I guess, even though I usually don't have a problem with that either.
Start wearing shorts in October.
I'm still a New York native. I moved down here a number of years ago. So, a couple things to point out. First, I want to make the board here aware. We're having building capacity issues with our two elementary buildings. I think we mentioned this at the board meeting as well. So essentially, our two elementary buildings, Sarah Lindemuth and Thomas Holtzman here, close by, they are either at or above capacity for their buildings. So, of course, that puts us in the dilemma and the pinch of having to do something about that. I think for the short term, what we're looking at is having the term's probably not trailers, but trailers. It's probably a more appropriate term than that, right? But
a modular.
The modular, thank you. Modular annex. Thank you. So we're looking to bring those in. I know we had them there at Sarah Lindemuth when we were doing the construction for Sarah Lindemuth. We had them at. So we'll be doing that. And just to mention, I believe, my understanding is part of this with the township there's part of this process where I think it comes here to the township for some approval of those. And I understand looking at, there's 20 or 21 days built into that to allow all of you to have that approval, if it's approval, if I'm using that right term. But there's something where there's a time built in for your needed action. And if I could just encourage all of you to, when that time comes, to reduce that as significantly as you can would be helpful. We are under a pinch. We are trying to get classroom sizes down. Obviously, we need to bring teachers in at the same time, so we're looking at hiring a few elementary teachers there. And we're looking essentially at basically creating another 4 rooms there at that lower elementary school. So
Which school?
It's Sarah Lindenmuth. We're looking at that.
Okay.
And we're in the process of looking at probably expansion efforts on both Sarah Lindenmuth and Thomas Holtzman. But the short-term fix is again modular capacity that has its own time frame to even get installed and so forth. So anything we can do or you can do here for your part to speed that along, we greatly appreciate that. And then the other issue was homecomings this weekend. So if you haven't been out for a football game and to see the band performance, come out for that, and you'll see the homecoming court as well. So that's it, Mr. President. Thank you.
Great, good deal. Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Kratzer, did you have anything?
No, that's fine.
Okay. All right. Okay, anything else, Mr. Fleming?
No, that concludes my report.
Okay.
Thank you.
Authority, Commissioner Sanderson?
No report.
Indian Wheels, Commissioner Barczyk?
Just to thank the volunteers as usual for their service. I do have a shade tree report,
Sure.
which is next, again, equally brief. The Shade Tree Commission members, which are volunteers, will be doing the fall planting of the shade trees next week, along with the Highway Department. So we thank them for their service as well.
Very good, thank you. And Communications, Commissioner Pine?
No report, Mr. President.
I just want to say that the newsletter really looks good.
Yeah.
This year, and, I think, thanks to your efforts and the staff, particularly Mr. Reichert, we were able to fix that mailing issue for certain parts of the township that, sip into different zones according to the postal carrier routes. So it was nice to receive it in the mail.
Good.
All right, anything on the human relations front?
No report, thank you.
Very good. Is there any new business? Hearing none. Commissioner comments?
I just want to make a brief comment, Mr. President. I just want to announce, since we are less than a month until Election Day, that the polling place for the 8th Ward, first of all, encourage everyone to come out and vote, please. The polling place for the 8th Ward has changed. Instead of voting in the Township building, voting will now take place across the way at Thomas Holtzman Elementary School. The school will be closed that day. There is ample parking. There is plenty of room to conduct an election. So I've put some of those communications out previously, but I just want everyone in Ward 8 to be aware that the polling place has changed. It will be at Thomas Holtzman Elementary, and I believe Election Day is Tuesday, November 7th.
Was there another ward?
There is. It's the 4th Ward. And
Okay.
That's a good segue. 4th Ward voters had voted for years at the high school auditorium. And this election, they'll be voting at Sarah Lindenmuth, where the 9th Ward used to be. So looking forward to that. And I'm sure there'll be just some disruption, but it happens.
Yeah, it's tough. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I really want to commend our County Director of Elections, Jerry Fieser, who has worked really diligently on trying to find places that are as accessible as possible, that will allow the maximum amount of people to vote, on that particular day. Again, November 7th, polls open at 7, close at 8 p.m. So 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Please do your civic duty. Please vote. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Anybody else have comments? Clearing your throat. You getting ready? Okay. Approval of bills paid.
Mr. President,
Yes.
I move to adopt the report of bills paid in the amount of $1,443,502.52. It's another large bill.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any comment?
I noticed that there was an item in there, $749,000 for an issuance of 2007. I presume that's a principal payment on a bond. Is that what that is?
That is correct.
I was hoping it wasn't interest.
That is, it is not. It's a principal payment, and that's the reason for the large sum, yeah?
Good point, Commissioner. Moved and seconded. Any other comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, beat you to it. It's been moved. Is there any second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries, and we're out of here. Thank you.